dealing with gentrification in Dallas. Do you guys deal with that over
We
there?
are dealing with gentrification. We are. And more specifically, in my neighborhood where I live, I'm dealing with gentrification because my neighborhood that I live in literally is 3 minutes from downtown Fort Worth. If you cross a bridge, you are in downtown. Our neighborhood is on the banks of the Trinity River. And so we had a developer a couple of years ago, and it's no secret to anybody where I live because I live in the neighborhood that I grew up in. So if you knew me from high school, middle school, elementary school, you know I still live in Riverside. It's not hard. I wasn't going anywhere. And so we had a developer who came and said, well, I rode through that neighborhood and there was nothing of value in the neighborhood. And I thought, okay. So my mama lived in that neighborhood, my sisters lived in that neighborhood, everybody who ever played a major role in my life lived in that neighborhood, and many of them still live there. So how do you determine value? And so did you look at the neighborhood and say, oh wow, it's black people and brown people, so there was no value? I'm still trying to figure that out, but it was a whole big blow up because I immediately just start flipping the table because you just can't come and tell me about my neighborhoods, whether it's where I live or somebody else. And so there is this development, and we really kind of got past that. And so they're building condominiums in our neighborhood. And in order to protect the other businesses in the neighborhood and the residential, the existing residential there and future residential, we are doing a rezoning to protect the industrial and to protect the residential. And our neighborhood is probably one of two neighborhoods in the city of Fort Worth where there is residential in the inner circle and then industrial that surrounds us. And we've existed perfectly fine for all of these years.
Wait a minute, so you're a residential neighborhood surrounded by industrial?
Industrial, yes.
That don't sound right, though.
It has not been an issue. Don't turn your face up.
I just
don't
did.
Don't
But
do
the reason
don't
why I did
and let me tell you
why.
and let me tell you why.
Okay.
Because there have been times, so this is
I'm
our
open to
neighborhood
it.
here.
I'm open to it.
And
No
this is the
neighborhood.
industrial. And it comes around. There have been times when, and just like now, when the neighborhood has been at threat. And it's been the owners of these industrial complexes that have stepped up to support the neighborhoods.
Explain the neighborhood being a threat.
And so we've had, in the inner of our neighborhood is it used to be, it's no longer there, a concrete batch plant. And so when the concrete batch plant was bought out by a company, an individual actually in Russia, who decided that they were going to amp up, and it was actually Hanson International.
No collusion.
What?
Go ahead.
No collusion, okay. And so they were amping up to start to do bricks. And the silos were just shooting dust everywhere. And so when we reached out to TCEQ as the neighborhood and said, hey, we're having issues that we never had, TCEQ said, we came out, we measured, and the dust was staying on their property. Well, if the wind is blowing, dust does not stay in one spot. So
Councilman, TCEQ, for those that are listening in, tell them what TCEQ is.
So TCEQ is a state organization that actually regulates environmental businesses. And they do the monitoring for environmental businesses as well. And so our neighborhood association, our president at the time, went to Waste Management because Waste Management was in our community, and had the conversation with Waste Management and saying, we're starting to have all of these issues. Will you join me in Austin for a hearing? And not only did Waste Management come, but ABF Transport Freight came, Encore's in our neighborhood, Encore came, and we went to Austin to fight on behalf of the neighborhood. But then we've had instances where Waste Management needed a zoning change because they wanted to expand the services that they were, you know, their property there, do different things there, and they needed a zoning change. So it's been the neighborhood who has gone to support Waste Management, but every single thing that
The
happens.
neighborhoods went to support Waste Management.
Uh-huh. Waste Management has not been a bad neighbor, and I think it's all about building relationships. You have businesses who are in communities, and if you want the communities to thrive, I think for us in my neighborhood, it has been creating relationships with all of those different businesses.
And what's the name of this community again?
It's Riverside.
Riverside. Okay.
Yes.
I like to visit Riverside
Come.
very soon.
Come.
Because I've never seen anything like that. Normally, and the people are commenting on it, where you have a neighborhood. That's why you said don't frown up, and I'm going like, yeah, because it's like, wait a minute. When you have a neighborhood that's completely surrounded, you said
We're surrounded.
surrounded by industrial, that's not normally good.
And I say, okay, so I say industrial. It is not all zoned industrial.
Right.
It is not all zoned industrial, but literally, Waste Management is on Riverside Drive. ABF Freight is down on Sylvania. Encore is actually on Sylvania and comes into the neighborhood. And one of the great things, they come to our neighborhood association meetings. They're involved in what's happening. They're supportive of the neighborhood association. We just had a spring festival. So they were sponsors of the spring festival at the community center. We do a
So they're being community
yeah,
neighbors.
yes,
Okay,
they
I
are.
understand that.
Everybody, you know, it's just trying to figure
They
out.
go to the PTAs and all that.
They do. We have an elementary school, so they do. We have a reading club, and Encore is a part of the reading club with the kids at the school. Just figuring out, we're here together. How do we coexist peacefully and make it work for everybody that's here? And that's what has happened for years.
Now, speaking of existing peaceful, and I said collusion earlier, you mentioned this. You mentioned that the person who bought the company came from Russia, and I thought of
It's a
collusion.
Russian company. Yes,
Right.
yes.
And not you collusion.
Oh, no.
I was thinking of Russia and collusion, but they caught it at home. But anyway, as we're talking about this situation here about being existing, existing together. You guys have had some issues with the police force before in Fort Worth. How are you guys working your way through that?
So let's be real specific. Tell me what you mean.
Speaking specifically, you were at a meeting, I understand, in which the mayor of Fort Worth called it a bitch session. And speaking specifically of that, you were one of the ones I understand had spoke at that meeting.
I was.
Could you go into detail about that?
So, actually, the mayor spoke as I was leaving.
And I'm glad you called me out. You said, well, get to the point. What you trying to get to?
So the mayor made the comment as I was leaving because my comments were supposed to be the last comments.
Right. Because that was in your district, right?
No, it was
So
not in my district. It was not. It actually happened. The Jacqueline Craig incident with her family and Officer Martin actually happened in District 6. And so the meeting was in District 6. And I made comments, and I was leaving because it was on January 12th, and it was my husband's birthday, so I was headed to go meet them for dinner, and had just come in from Austin, and the mayor made the comment about, I think she said, when we come together again, we won't have what my son calls a bitch session. And I was out the door when I heard all of this eruption, and I thought, wow, what happened? And I didn't know that's what she said until I went back and looked at somebody's Facebook Live video, that's what she had said.
So that what was said at the meeting, obviously you didn't say it, but there in Fort Worth, as it is in Dallas, we, in our neighborhoods, communities of color, thank you, let's roll up on that one, communities of color, we have issues, it seems like, with getting our money's worth out of police departments. Do you have any ways in which you could get a better service?
So And let me say this, my husband, so there's no secret to anybody, my husband is retired Fort Worth PD. How he policed and how I think our younger officers, and I think that's what you see the difference now, how he policed is very different than how I think younger officers police now. And even if you look at veteran officers, how they police. Because one of the things, if you ever get pulled over by a veteran officer, they walk up to the car, they've been doing this for so long, they start to talk, they say hello. You know, it's a totally different interaction than when you get someone who's only been out of the academy, you know, a year or a couple of years, and they don't have that. It's a totally different interaction, and I'm saying that from somebody who's been pulled over by the police. That I thought, wow, okay, so hello, how you doing? You know, I'm officer such and such and such, because it's all a common courtesy. I think where we in Fort Worth, and I hope under, and I feel like this, let me say this, I feel like under our new police chief, we are starting to make strides to get back to community policing the way we originally did community policing when Chief Wyndham was our chief, and we brought community policing into the city of Fort Worth.
Community-based policing.
Yes, and having you know, our NPO officers, our neighborhood patrol officers at community meetings, at schools, at places where people are in the community, but then also having those beat officers there. So that you not only see them, you know, riding up and down the street patrolling, but you see them in a more social setting as well. It feels like in many of my communities, we're there. And what I am really excited about in one of my communities who historically had never called the police, didn't have a neighborhood association, didn't do any of this, have been very welcoming of having a neighborhood patrol officer, but having a neighborhood patrol officer who looked like them. Who, you know, when he comes in, he's hugging, he's shaking hands, he plays dominoes, he plays cards, he trash talks just as much as they do. He has worked to be a part of the community, to create trust. And I think that's where we have to be regardless. And there was this thing the other day that said, you know, communities of color, whether we're black or brown, we need to have people who look like us policing us. Well, that's not even how our real world is. We have to figure out how to train people who don't look like us to understand we are all people.
You know, and to your point when it comes to that, you say your husband was a policeman.
Yes.
And a lot of policemen and chiefs of police listen to this radio show. As a matter of fact, I see one of them down in Cleveland, Texas, that's listening in right now. When it comes down to being professional is not about a color.
No, it's not.
It's
It's what your parents taught you.
It's about respect.
That's it.
And at the same time, it's about respect on both ends as well. You know, it's not like you should challenge the police to a conversation about something when they stopped you. You be respectful. I believe it was Malcolm X who once said, "Yes, sir," and "No, sir," everyone, and leave it and give it a date. So when it comes to that. So now that we've addressed the police issue, I wanted to go ahead and address that because I saw that on video, and I saw that you were there as well. And it seems like in the city of Fort Worth, as it is in Dallas, policemen seem to be on trial as well. And they're on trial, and sometimes they deserve to be on trial.
Right.
So just want to go ahead and call people to the witness stand, if you will, if they're on trial. As we are about to take a break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to close out the interview, I want to go ahead and say how much I've enjoyed talking to you, this give and take that we've had. I definitely want to walk your district with you. I'm intrigued because I've been studying environmental justice a lot lately.
Okay.
And what you had said it triggered me. I go, what? Wait a minute, hold on.
Yeah.
So that being said, I want you to go ahead and make some more comments regarding not gentrification but redevelopment, to allay any concerns of whether or not we need to be concerned about development. Because if it seems like if you live in a certain neighborhood and someone talks about gentrification, you automatically tighten up. Should we be concerned about these kind of things?
Absolutely. But I mean, absolutely, we should be. But okay. So I'm gonna get on my soapbox for just a moment.
2 minutes and then we were.
Okay, I'm always concerned when people start to talk about gentrification and we moved out of the neighborhood. We left our neighborhoods. We as black people, we left our neighborhoods. And so we have left our neighborhoods vulnerable for a takeover. And that is as real as it possibly can be. We've left our grandmothers, we left our grandfathers, our aunts and our uncles out there by themselves. We moved away from the neighborhoods. And we ride through the neighborhoods and we say, somebody ought to do something about that. And then we're not the somebody, but we get mad when the somebody comes in and starts buying up property and doing things in the neighborhood, and then we say, all those white people have taken over the neighborhood. Well, they didn't have to.
All right. Okay, let's go to a break, and we will be right back on the Commission Radio Show.
Hi, this is Kelly Allen Gray, Fort Worth City Council District 8, and I look forward to continuing to serve you after